Grab your coffee or pull up a chair. I always got opinions and a whole lot of air. Caucuses, cornfields, common sense. Well, 2 out of 3, cause the last one's on defense. Pour something stronger, the news is a mess. Let's talk Iowa and hope for the best.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk Iowa. I'm your host, Chad Benson. Before we dive into the mess that is today, let's be completely honest with each other. I don't have $1 million PR machine behind me. I don't have a corporate sponsorship that are paying a lot of money and writing me a bunch of checks to keep the lights on. If we actually want to spark real change in this state, we've got to reach the masses, and we have to do this ourselves. Policy doesn't shift because government bureaucrats suddenly grew a conscience. It shifts when enough of us stand up together, raise our voices, and demand it loudly. So right now, do me a massive favor. Take 3 seconds to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share this episode with a friend, a neighbor, or even maybe a local lawmaker or politician. Let's break through the silence together, because I can't do this without you. Now, if you pull up Iowa Code Chapter 22, our state's open records law, the core promise is pretty straightforward and simple. Public records belong to the people. This sounds basic. It really does, but I can't tell you how far from basic and how far from true this is in the state of Iowa. And I'm hoping to highlight that a bit today and maybe to inspire some lawmakers to address this and make changes. Section 22.8 says that open examination of public records is in the public interest, even though, quoting here, even though such examination may cause inconvenience or embarrassment to public officials. The whole baseline here is openness. You shouldn't need a law degree or a corporate expense account just to see how government agencies are spending their tax dollars, to see how child welfare policies are being drawn up, or how legislative bills are actually analyzed. So what happens in Governor Kim Reynolds' Iowa when you try to look at those, when you try to access those records? You don't get a formal denial, because that would be illegal in a lot of ways. But you get slapped with an invoice that is so daunting that it would drain Scrooge McDuck's gold coin swimming pool like that. Today, I'm not talking about hypotheticals. I'm going to read you the exact email exchange from public records requests that I personally filed with the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services. I filed these between December 2025 and April of 2026. We're going to break down their wild, absolutely insane 193-hour review formula, and we're going to look at how the administration uses administrative paywalls to duck oversight and cruise after that through our regular segments.
Hiding behind a fake protocol screen.
It's the biggest line of garbage that you've ever seen.
We're bringing the law, so pull up a chair.
Time to bust the myths wide open!
Now, before we get into everything else, I'm just going to start with Mythbusters, right? We're going to bust a massive administrative myth right out of the gate. When a state agency tells you, we don't have a statutory mechanism to waive fees for public interest or news media, so our hands are tied, and that they have no choice but to charge you. Not true. Myth busted, okay? Iowa Code, Section 22.3, establishes that an agency may charge a reasonable fee to recover costs, but nothing in Iowa law forces them to charge a public interest requester. Agencies choose to enforce these paywalls as a matter of internal executive policy. Furthermore, federal FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests, the guidelines, and honestly, 25 other states, they mandate public interest fee waivers. So it's federally mandated, and 25 other states just jumped on board with it. The Reynolds administration outright refuses to adopt those standards because those paywalls are doing exactly what they were designed to do: shield the executive branch from accountability. Her administration thrives on saying one thing and doing another. Don't believe me? Let's dig in. Let's look at the actual receipts from my request to Iowa HHS. In December of 2025, I filed a public records request with HHS that was looking into adoption subsidy agreement templates, internal policy memos on what they call parental liability, which are clauses that were in these subsidy agreements, especially when we were talking about the adoption of special needs children. And I wanted emails that were providing guidance from specifically the 2016 managed care transition. Because this research was meant to help adoptive families and inform the public, I explicitly asked for a fee waiver. Here is how HHS responded on December 11th of 2025. Hello, Chad. Our team has reviewed your request, and they believe it will take 15 hours to gather the data to complete this request. We charge $32 an hour for staff time. We provide 3 hours without a charge, so we would request a check for 4.5 hours times $32, which is $144. Can you please let me know if you would like me to forward you an invoice on where to submit your payment? $144 upfront just to get basic policy templates that every single caseworker uses every single day. And then $144 at the completion of that job. So again, no corporate sponsors, right? They're not writing me checks to keep the lights on or to fuel these investigations. So I'll narrow it down. On January 22nd of 2026, I asked HHS, if I just request the info for Woodbury County, how does that impact the fee? HHS checked with their division and came back with this. The estimate would remain the same as all HHS employees utilize the same templates, policy, and MCO guidance would be standardized across the state. The division believes it will still take them 12 to 15 hours to gather responsive data. Now, I know that this is completely false. They might use the same templates now, but they didn't always. And at the time that I was going through this process, I know they didn't. And how do I know this? Well, HHS personnel themselves and support workers that are in the know told me on numerous times in private conversations that this simply wasn't true. It was a hodgepodge of directives. So narrowing the geographic scope changed absolutely nothing. So on January 29th, I wrote back. Unfortunately, that is a paywall barrier that I simply can't afford. HHS's response, a sigh of relief actually at dodging accountability yet again. No, but really they just closed the request and moved on. Now, hold on to your seats for what happened in March of 2026 when I requested emails regarding legislative oversight on what was then called House File 2256. This was a bill that was dealing directly with child welfare and parental liability. On March 12th, I requested emails to or from Division Administrator Janae Harvey. You've heard that name before. And I wanted things that contained terms like adoption decree, HF 2256, and the phrase child in need of assistance. On March 25th, HHS hit me with this gem of a policy formula. It is crazy, okay? They said, "Hello, Chad. Your public record request resulted in 581 emails. HHS policy assumes each email is 10 pages and allows for 2 minutes per page to review for confidentiality. HHS staff will provide 3 hours of staff time before charging, but then we charge $32 an hour. The current estimate for this request, wait for it, is 193 hours. HHS would require half of the estimate be paid prior to starting the confidentiality review." Let's break down this mathematical masterpiece. Because according to HHS, every email sent in state government is a literary epic. Apparently, nobody in state government ever hits reply and types, "Got it, thanks," right? Their policy automatically assumes that every single email is 10 pages long. No, every quick check is treated like a Robert Jordan novel. And once they magically inflate your email account into a mountain of phantom pages, they give themselves 2 full minutes to review every single page for confidentiality. 2 entire minutes. Now, I don't know what kind of speed reading crisis they're having over at the Lucas building, but it supposedly takes a state employee an entire 120 seconds to decipher a digital greeting like, "Sounds good," treating every minor text string like an ancient hieroglyph that needs to be decoded by a team of university scholars. Think about how absurd that is in the year 2026. We live in an era of complex computer programs and artificial intelligence like Logic Cull, Relativity 1, and Case Point can ingest, deduplicate, index, and redact thousands of documents in mere minutes using advanced pattern matching and natural language processing. Yet, the state of Iowa acts like its workers are sitting at a manual typewriter with magnifying glasses, spending 2 full minutes staring at every single page. Let's actually math the math. 581 emails times 10 assumed pages is 5,810 pages. Multiply that by 2 minutes of deep, agonizing contemplation per page. Subtract those 3 complimentary hours, and you're looking at a 193-hour bill totaling over $6,100. And because they demand 50% up front, they wanted a check for over $3,000 just to start reading. Now, let's talk about the sheer jaw-dropping hypocrisy of how this is funded. Think about who writes those paychecks in the first place. Every single state employee, IT technician, and compliance officer in that building is already salaried on taxpayer dollars. We already pay for their time. When we filed our state income taxes, paid our property taxes, bought groceries down the street. If not a single citizen filed a records request for the entire year, those HHS employees would still sit at their desks and pick up their regular paychecks. So why on earth is the taxpayer being forced to pay their salary twice? First, we fund their base salary to run the government and create the data. All right. And second, when we actually ask to see what they made, what they did with our money, they slap on a second hourly wage fee using our own tax dollars to pay employees to act as gatekeepers, keeping us, Iowa citizens, in the dark. It is absolutely asinine. They use this double billing method as a toll booth to the truth. They price out regular Iowans while corporate lobby firms, right, they can pay those, right? What's $6,000 to them? A drop in a bucket, right? Those fees are casual business expenses for the corporate entities. And just to see how absurd this $6,100 price tag really is, let's look at what that exact same request would cost across the rest of our country. New York, ready for it? Free. In Massachusetts and Maine, there are labor caps and mandatory free windows. So essentially, free. In Connecticut and New Jersey, we get pricey here. It might cost up to $10. In Vermont, a maximum of 15. In Washington State, electronic record delivery of this scale costs, break the bank on this one, $2. In Kentucky, about 7. Even in states like Texas, I hear you, Sashio. Sashio is our new green cheek conure, and he is making it known that he would like to participate in this conversation, but he was a little naughty earlier, so he has to stay there for now. But in states like Texas, Florida, and California, it's vastly cheaper. Still expensive in those states, but cheaper than here. Under Governor Reynolds' custom administrative markup, that exact same stack of public emails will run you a staggering $6,100 before a single word is handed over. We are the most expensive state for this type of request. Now, other states, they treat government files as public property. Iowa treats them like a high-end luxury item that's behind a velvet rope, and that bouncer isn't letting you through without a little grease. Anyway, this isn't an administrative process. This is a shakedown to retain political power and oppress everyday citizens. It's interesting. In the medieval era, feudal barons, they didn't ban merchants necessarily outright from traveling down public rivers. They just built a lot of toll castles at every bend until only the wealthiest traders could afford to pass. This is exactly what HHS, under the direction of Governor Reynolds, is doing with Chapter 22. This culture of secrecy, it comes from the top. Look at the factual record. When Governor Reynolds was sued, her office was sued back in 2021 for holding records hostage for over a year. Her legal team tried a wild theory in court. They argued that unless the governor explicitly rejects a request in writing, just ignoring it and dragging the process out for 18 months isn't technically a legal denial under Chapter 22. Think about that logic. the logic from our governor, who often spouts about government transparency. Historically, it's the exact same pocket veto trick that executive monarchs use to quietly kill bills without signing them. So Reynolds invented a pocket denial, never saying no, just running out the clock. In the business world, that's called ghosting. But organized crime, they would have referred to it a little bit differently, right? It's what omerta, the code of silence. Now, the legal strategy essentially amounted to the executive branch telling the people of Iowa, look, we didn't break your window or explicitly tell you no. We just took your money, locked the door, and pretended we didn't hear you knocking for a year and a half. So technically, nobody's home. It's a silent shakedown disguised as a legal defense. This pocket denial they created, this idea of never giving you a straight answer, and just hoping that sheer exhaustion would make you sleep with the fishes. This is the go-to strategy for Iowa HHS and many other government agencies in this state. However, in April of 2023, Bellin versus Reynolds, the Iowa Supreme Court unanimously shredded that theory. Justice David May wrote clearly that an unreasonable delay is a silent refusal under Iowa law, and that no executive is above Chapter 22. Good. That's a start, right? How did the administration handle that, though? Well, in June of 2023, the State Appeal Board voted 2-1 to use $135,000 of your taxpayer dollars to pay the ACLU's legal fees for the governor's transparency violation. Interestingly enough, State Auditor Rob Sand cast the lone no vote during that, and he called it a scam where executive insiders break the law and then force the taxpayers to pick up the tab. So let's look at the pattern that the Reynolds administration has here. The Supreme Court, the settlement with the Supreme Court there, passes legal costs right back to the taxpayers. The veto of House File 2539, right, when the legislator overwhelmingly passed a bill to raise civil penalties on public officials who hide records up to $12,500, right? The legislator, they actually did their job. They're like, hey, look, this is wrong. We need to pass penalties so that people like those in Governor Reynolds' administration that do this are held accountable to some degree. It passed overwhelmingly through the legislature, landed on Kim Reynolds' desk, and was promptly vetoed. Makes you wonder why, doesn't it? Now, an investigation by Rob Sand showed the Department of Management actively told executive agencies to withhold financial records from lawmakers. Again, another action under Governor Reynolds' administration. When executive leadership vetoes enforcement and tells agencies to block oversight, cabinet directors respond by inventing review formulas that turn open records into a $6,100 paywall, and they call it administrative cost recovery. But let's be real. It's just a luxury tax on curiosity designed to price everyday citizens right out of government oversight and transparency.
The system is perfect, the access is great. That's the corporate lie being fed by the state. Open your eyes to the fiction they model. It's time for the Gaslight Chronicles.
All right, welcome to the Gaslight Chronicles, where we highlight the Grand Canyon between the state agency PR and real life. What what is gaslighting in a system like ours? It's a psychological trap where an institution denies reality directly to your face. It they take undeniable facts and they twist them so thoroughly that you start to question your own sanity. It's when a government tells you, hey, these doors are wide open, while simultaneously locking you out of the room. And then you're the one standing in the dark, right? They look you in the eye and insist that, no, they're open. You're just standing there in the dark of your own choice. They're open right here. Whenever Governor Reynolds steps in front of a podium and addresses the press, the script, it rarely changes. The narrative is always about streamlining government, driving efficiency, and personal favorite here, bringing unprecedented transparency to Iowans. Sounds wonderful on a campaign mailer or a press release, but does it actually happen? Well, as someone who's had to fight managed care organizations to obtain HIPAA guaranteed medical records, and had to go through their internal review process, only to be told no again and then greeted by absolute silence from state oversight. I can personally attest that systemic corruption is a lot more prevalent than we like to admit, especially that Governor Reynolds liked to admit. It's essentially, honestly, corruption is essentially, it's baked into the system. They don't want transparency. Governor Reynolds doesn't want transparency. If she did, FOIA requests would be free or extremely low cost, or hell, even reasonably cost. No, what they want is complete exhaustion. They want exhaustion, and they want that exhaustion to ensure the citizens' compliance with not digging too deep into what's happening in their government. On April 15th of 2026, I tried to narrow down that massive 193-hour email request. And I tried to just shrink it down to bare bones. So I restricted it. I said, hey, how about you just focus on these 5 days? This was this window of 5 days. Focus on that. And not only that, let's limit the keywords to HF2256. One phrase. Okay, 5 days, one keyword. Surely that fits into 3 free hours, right? You'd think. But here was HHS's their response. Here we go. I'm gonna do my best HHS drone voice. Hello, Chad. I just received a response regarding your request, and with the modified search, they located 74 items. With 74 items, HHS would assume this would be 740 pages. HHS is allowed 2 minutes per page to review. Our invoice would be for 9.25 hours of staff time at $32 per hour. We would request $296 to process this request. Holy crap. This right here is textbook gaslighting. The FOIA doors are wide open. But narrowing down a FOIA request still makes them come up with 740 imaginary pages that they can use to hand you a $296 toll booth bill.
Welcome to the circus, the clowns are in town. The wheels are falling off and the tent's burning down. Is this a sitcom or real life passing by? It's time for Laugh or Cry.
All right, it's time for Laugh or Cry. So we actually look at news in the state of Iowa and try to decide if we should laugh at the sheer absurdity or cry at the consequences that inevitably follow. Here's a story. It's called the PBM $100 million hide and seek game, I guess. So state auditor Rob Sand, he dropped a bombshell audit revealing that the pharmacy benefit managers working behind the scenes with Iowa's Medicaid managed care organizations, the MCOs that we all know I just love so much. He dropped this audit revealing that they used back-end effective rate pricing models, reconciling costs annually to claw back money that had been previously paid to pharmacies. So this generated roughly $100 million in hidden value over a 3-year period for just one of the the PBMs have analyzed. Sachio, what's going on, huh? You just want to see, he wants to chime in too. He does not like MCOs. He knows how worthless they are, and he's just a bird. So not too complicated, but we can't get the Republican Party to figure this out. So hopefully they can start not being bird brains. That's an insult because even the bird gets it. I don't know. Anyhow, so when the state auditors tried to inspect the books to check for prohibited spread pricing and taxpayer exploitation, these corporate vendors blocked the audit. They claimed that their ledgers were confidential trade secrets. Now, if you have nothing to hide, right? That's the line we hear a lot of people say is, "Well, you have nothing to be scared of if you just follow the law." Okay, well, let's apply that. If they have nothing to hide, why not let the state auditors do their job? Right? This is what they're supposed to do. So how did executive leadership in Governor Reynolds' administration respond to an independent watchdog trying to trace $100 million in taxpayer-funded healthcare dollars? Instead of welcoming oversight into these multi-billion-dollar state contracts that my money and your money go to, the administration dismissed the audit's findings and attacked the auditor's office as politically motivated. Again, as someone who's had to fight MCOs to obtain HIPAA, guaranteed medical records, and again went through their internal review process, and again was granted with was faced with silence when it came to government oversight that doesn't exist. It's corruption. Why wouldn't the administration say, "Hey, yeah, let's dig into this. Let's find out for sure. I think you're wrong. I don't think there's a problem. But you know what? In the name of transparency, let's dig into this." No. That multi-billion-dollar state program, they get to hide behind corporate trade secrets while taxpayers are kept in the dark because the current administration wants to help those MCOs make money and wants to keep us lowly citizens, us peasants, in the dark. Do we laugh at the cover-up? or do we cry for accountability? I don't know. How about you decide? Hit the comments. Tell us how your community, how your family is feeling about it. And, I'm going to keep demanding receipts. I hope you do too. But let's, okay, this one I'm going to like because I get to play a video. Let's go to roll the tape.
I saw this online and I gasped out aloud. This clip deserves to be shown to a crowd. Grab some popcorn and brace for the ride. Hit the button and roll the tape.
Question. Many of us have had trouble having open records requests with your administration fulfilled in a timely fashion. Can you would you pledge today to instruct your staff to respond to those open records requests as soon as possible and more?
That would be fantastic. Now, this is from a while back. Okay, we're going back in history here. But guess what hasn't changed in the years? What hasn't changed is Lee Reynolds' administration's actual actions to bring true transparency. But sorry, I interrupted him. He has a good point. Hey, let's hear him out. Let's hear him out. Well, Governor Reynolds will probably answer this, and she'll be straightforward, and I vow to help. Watch.
Timely fashion.
Yeah, we're not, I'm not concerned about that at all. We want to be transparent and open. We've just had a lot on our plate this year. So, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but everybody, we're working. I mean, they're working around the clock and 7 days a week, but.
I'm not trying to make excuses, but here's my excuse. We're just busy. But I'm not making excuse. Typical politician double talk. Not making excuses, right? But making excuses while claiming not to make excuses is okay. Whatever. Maybe she'll change her mind here.
It is our intent to be open and transparent, and that means responding in a timely manner. So, I have no issue with making that commitment.
No issue making that. She did say timely. Oh, I should have thought this through. See, she's doing it timely now. Just not reasonably, not price effective, not really opening it to everyone.
And just to be clear, that has not been happening. So
I hear that.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
I am so glad that she hears that. She heard that, guys. Governor Reynolds heard that. So if that didn't really just get you pumped about and knowing things are going to change, nothing will. So this is footage from an online press conference. Aaron Murphy, president of the Iowa Capitol Press Association, asked Governor Reynolds point blank about her staff, HHS, right, failing to fulfill open records requests on time. So we watch this and we see her response. First, Aaron says, hey, many of us have had trouble having open records requests with your administration fulfilled in a timely fashion. Would you pledge today to instruct your staff to respond to those open record requests as soon as possible and in a more timely fashion? Yeah, we're not concerned about that at all. Now, I think we could just stop her whole response there and just focus on that. She's not concerned about a timely response. She's not concerned about people seeing what the government's doing. That's what I think she really meant. But then she probably backpedaled here, right? And it's like, we want to be transparent and open. We've just had a lot on our plate this year. But it's our intent to be open and transparent. That word again, right? Got to say that. Transparent. Got to say it at least. And that means responding in a timely manner. So yeah, I have no issue with making that commitment. Yeah, I hear that. That line just echoes in my head. She makes a pledge, basically, there, to be transparent. But the moment a reporter calls out that it's not happening, that her administration's actions are not lining up with their words, You see her body language, it was just brushed off with a casual shrug. And we know that exact attitude, historically, we know it, led right to the Bellin versus Reynolds Supreme Court defeat, where taxpayers had to shell out over $135,000 in settlement fees because of Governor Reynolds' administration's actions. So when HHS drops a $6,100 invoice on us as a podcast, as a public interest communicator, that, yeah, I hear that mentality is still there, and it's coming right from the top. It has been the whole time. Okay, maybe a little bit more positive now. I got to get grounded again. Here we go.
Step out of the arena, take a breath for a minute. This is a heavy fight, but you're not alone in it. Find a safe place where the armor can fall. Welcome to the corner that is built for us all.
I've said this before, but if you're listening to this tonight or today, and maybe you're in a quiet living room, maybe you're listening as you go to work or return from work, or maybe you're watching us and just kind of sitting in your car in the driveway, trying to catch 5 minutes of peace and quiet before walking back inside. Just, I want you to drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, take one deep, real breath. We spend a lot of time on this program, on Let's Talk Iowa, talking about policy, systems, and government corruption. But right here, in this corner, none of that matters. What matters is you. If you are caring for a child with complex trauma, with FASD, with any number of high acuity needs, and you're here in Iowa right now, you know what it's like to live in a state where the support system simply isn't there. You know how the hollow feeling of calling down a list of local providers and even broadening out to state level providers, only to hear those phrases, we have a 2-year waiting list, or yeah, we don't really accept that level of need. It leaves you feeling stranded. Leaves you feeling stranded, like you're on an island, alone, carrying a load that was never meant for one person to carry. When services aren't available, a very quiet, dangerous thing happens inside of a person. Inside a caregiver's head, we start blaming ourselves. You start thinking, if I was just a little bit stronger, if I was just a little bit more patient, if I had tried one more strategy, maybe our home wouldn't be chaotic. Maybe I wouldn't feel this shame or this anger or this loss. But hear me. That guilt doesn't belong to you. When a state doesn't have the beds, the crisis stabilization, or the community care that your child deserves and that was promised to you, that's a failure of the system. It's not a failure of your love. I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. Most of the administrators that are typing policy emails or reviewing case files from a desk have never, ever held a terrified, screaming child at 3 a.m. They haven't felt the physical ache in their chest after a week of nonstop hypervigilance. They don't understand that you aren't just navigating bureaucratic paperwork. You are trying to find balance. You are trying to keep your child, your family, and yourself safe in a vacuum of available services. Services, again, that were promised to you. You aren't failing. You are surviving an environment that was under-resourced long before you even set foot in it. I can't fix the state service shortage overnight. I plan on fixing it. But tonight, I want to give you 3 small things to hold on to when that weight gets just too damn heavy. First, forgive yourself for being human. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to feel angry, flat out pissed off. You're allowed to feel heartbroken. You're allowed to feel overwhelmed. Feeling exhausted doesn't mean you love your child any less. It just means that you've been fighting a long, long battle without rest, without a break. Second, protect those small moments of peace. Many times we try to find those big breaks, right? We want a weekend off. We want to go to, I don't know, Jamaica for a week and just lounge on a beach and relax. But if you're a family like mine, that's not in the cards. And so, even if you don't get a full weekend, look for tiny pockets of breathing room. 10 minutes with a warm cup of coffee. Sitting maybe in just total silence. Listening to one song. Guard those small moments fiercely. And without apology, you need time to yourself. You need time away from the conflict and from the struggle. Third, remember the community standing behind you. When you feel, and you will feel like this, when you feel that there's just nobody that understands. Nobody understands what your day-to-day life looks like. Just remember this podcast community. We get it. You are part of a quiet but fiercely loving group of parents and caregivers across this state who are walking a very, very similar road. You don't have to do this alone. Your love for your child is the strongest thing in the room tonight. When the system feels cold and indifferent to your struggles and your needs and your child's struggles and your child's needs, your presence is the anchor that holds everything together. Take care of your heart tonight. Step back, breathe, and give yourself some grace. We see you. We understand you. And we're standing beside you. So let the tears out if you need to. I've done that. Scream into a pillow. Let that rage out. I've done that. Or if you're just exhausted, just rest in the moment. Thanks, Sashio. But above all, stay stubborn and keep standing strong. Let's bring this home. when Iowa's open records law was enacted in 1967, the legislature built a sunshine law, not a blackout shutter. The intent at the time was to shine a perpetual spotlight into state agency hallways. Yep, under Governor Kim Reynolds' executive administration, state agencies are permitted to use internal review formulas that generate thousands of dollars in fake labor estimates, demanding thousands in upfront deposits before a single document is released. When access to public records requires writing a $6,100 check, transparency is no longer a right. It is a commodity that's being sold to the highest bidder, to only those that can afford it. If the Iowa legislature wants to restore integrity to the governor's office, integrity to Chapter 22, the solutions are pretty clear. Mandate public interest fee waivers. Align with the federal FOIA requirements by waiving search and review fees for news media, researchers, and citizens conducting oversight. 2, cap hourly staff labor rates. States like Massachusetts and Maine cap hourly billing at $15 to $25 an hour. Personally, I feel that's too high because there are computer programs that can do it. But if we insist on living in the dark ages, at least lower the cost. Outlaw automatic page multipliers. This 10-page per email assumption is beyond ludicrous. I can't recall a time when I've sent a 10-page email. Maybe there's been times where attachments have been that long. That's possible. But even that is pretty darn rare. There are basic digital search tools available that can be used to give actual page counts, not inflated ones designed at just barring citizens from transparency. Enforce penalties on blocked audits. Let's pass some meaningful oversight legislation that penalizes government agencies, that penalizes government employees, Governor Reynolds, and penalizes corporate vendors who refuse to open their books to the state auditor. And I would go even higher than $12,500. Maybe make it $12,500 a day. That would open up their books pretty quick. Until these reforms are signed into law, Chapter 22's promise of open government, it's going to remain locked behind a government-sanctioned paywall. So if you believe in transparency, if you are tired of paywalls, and if you want to see real policy change in Iowa, I need your help. I need your help to reach the masses, to reach more and more Iowa citizens. So please, again, take a second right now to like this video, smash the subscribe button, and share this episode on Facebook, X, or any other social media platform, and share it with your community. Each share adds voices to our chorus, and we, as a group, will not be quieted down, and we will not back down. I guarantee you I will not back down. That's our show for today on Let's Talk Iowa. I'm Chad Benson. Visit our website at letstalkiowa.com and subscribe. Leave us a review. Stay stubborn. Keep standing strong. Keep asking questions, Iowa, but more importantly, demand answers and help us
coffee's cold and the receipts are clear, but we ain't moving an inch from here. They built the walls and they play the game, but we're calling the bluff and naming names. So slam that button and subscribe today. Don't let them run this in the shade. We'll catch you next time on Let's Talk Iowa, where the truth won't change and the policies are real. Pour one strong, keep your standards high, 'cause we're keeping an eye on the Iowa sky.